Welcome to Conversations with Big Rich. This is an interview-style podcast. Those interviews are all involved in the off-road industry. Being involved, like all of my guests are, is a lifestyle, not just a job. I talk to competitive teams, racers, rock crawlers, business owners, employees, media, and private park owners, men and women who have found their way into this exciting and addictive lifestyle. We discuss their personal history, struggles, successes, and reboots. We dive into what drives them to stay active in off-road. We all hope to shed some light on how to find a path into this world we live and love and call off-road.
Whether you're crawling the Red Rocks of Moab or hauling your toys to the trail, Maxxis has the tires you can trust for performance and durability. 4 wheels or 2. Maxxis tires are the choice of champions because they know that whether for work or play, for fun or competition, Maxxis tires deliver. Choose Maxxis. Tread victoriously.
Have you seen 4Low magazine yet? 4Low magazine is a high-quality, well-written, four-wheel drive-focused magazine for the enthusiast market. If you still love the idea of a printed magazine, something to save and read at any time, 4Low is the magazine for you. 4Low cannot be found in stores, but you can have it delivered to your home or place of business. Visit 4lowmagazine.com to order your subscription today. On today's episode of Conversations with Big Rich, we have Dan Dubose. Am I pronouncing that right, Dan?
Dubose.
Dubose. Okay. Dan Dubose. You know that it depends on what part of the country you're from or what how your parents said it. It can be said 10 different ways when it comes to the D and something else. So there we are. Hey, Dan is he was the founder of Blue Torch Fabworks, and now he is running Motobuilt and another company. We're going to get into all that. Dan and I have been friends for actually quite a while, and a lot of people out there know Dan. So, Dan, thank you for coming on board and spending some time with us.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
So, real easy question to start off with. Where were you born and raised?
I was born and raised in southern Alabama in a little town called Dothan. And it seems like we put Dothan on the map in the off-road industry with Blue Torch Fabworks back in the day. And
Absolutely.
I mean, I've tried to move away a few times throughout my life, but I always end up back in this area.
That's pretty cool. It is a small town. I've visited before under Blue Torch when you guys were like in your first or second building. And I was really impressed with the city and, you know, the whole atmosphere and everything. Is it still small townish, or have you made it grow too big?
Dothan's been growing quite a bit. I mean, I'd say it's a little bit different than when you were here.
Okay.
More population. There's a lot more development and things like that happening. So, good little town.
That's not a bad thing. So, what was growing up for you like in Dothan?
Man, I grew up in a neighborhood called Ford Country. Wasn't like the poor neighborhood. It wasn't the rich neighborhood. It was just kind of the average American neighborhood. Kids out riding bikes till, I don't know, wee hours of the night. Yeah, it was, hop on your bicycle and, I don't know, I'd leave and go many miles away during the day and didn't have anyone wondering where I was or worried about if somebody was going to get me. It was a safe environment.
Right.
Made a lot of friends and had a great time.
And was school something that was easy, or you just didn't care, or what was it like?
School for me, I was bored, and it just got to the point where I didn't care. So I started skipping school, and actually failed a grade from not going. So that didn't turn out too good. So if you got somebody's young and in school and listening, don't skip school.
Right, because no matter what you try to do, they're gonna get you back in it.
Yeah, it was growing up. Probably I was in the 3rd grade. I used to ride BMX, race BMX, stuff like that, and I was practicing like gate starts on my driveway, and ended up going through a plate glass window in our backyard garage
Ooh.
and cut my throat. Pretty much just about killed me. I was in the hospital for close to 3 months. They told my parents I probably wasn't going to live, things like that, but made it through that. Continued to ride bikes, got into skateboards, doing crazy stuff after that still. But school, I guess, was second, to other things I had going on. And I guess that's where like the learning the fabrication skills and things like that came in. There were a lot of times I just skipped school, stayed at home, and worked in the backyard garage building things.
Right. And did you try to, in school when you were there, did you try to, especially later on, I don't know if you guys had shop classes or anything, but did you take any of that kind of stuff?
Well, like eighth grade, I had the guidance counselor tell me, well, we're not going to let you pass and go to high school unless you agree to go to trade school. And I was like, okay. So I ended up taking electrical trades of all things and learned to wire houses and do commercial wiring and things like that. Got pretty good at it. And, I mentioned, failing me and getting in trouble for skipping. It's kind of a bad thing. Kind of got kicked out of school and ended up working for a local company wiring houses with no GED and no high school diploma for probably close to a year. I was, looking around at people I worked with, things like that, thinking, man, I'm better than this. I'm smarter than this. I'm screwing up. So I think the man that owned the company kind of caught the vibe that I had, that I wanted to go back to school. Well, he laid me off that Christmas. And I looked across the desk from him. He was kind of worried what I was going to say. I was like, oh, I thanked him. I was like, thank you. And immediately went back, got my high school diploma, got back in high school, and did that through a private school. And immediately went to college after that. So got my life turned around a little bit there. Haven't wired a house since.
That's a good thing. Now you can hire people to do your buildings and stuff. That's a much better way to do it. Help the
I kind of
economy.
keep my electrical knowledge, to myself. So we have a full-time maintenance person and some other people here at the shop. I just don't tell them I can do it. They just go handle it. So, but it is helpful to kind of know what they're doing and how long it should take and things like that. So,
Right.
But I think I did gain some good skills from the instructor I had in the vocational school in high school, a guy named Rusty Griffin. I think I learned more about life skills from him during that time than I did electrical. And I still kind of reflect back on him during that process.
Okay, that's awesome. Is it somebody that you have touched bases with over the years?
I've ran into him from time to time. Like if I'd see he and his wife out to dinner, I'd usually just pay for their dinner and not say anything and walk out the door.
Oh, that's awesome.
But yeah, he called me out on all of my bull crap back then, skipping school, and it was more like a father figure to me than an instructor.
That's really good when you, especially for a young man, when you can find somebody that's that way. And hopefully if anybody's listening to this and your kids are having problems, man, if there is somebody else that can help with the guidance, by all means, if it's a friend, another family member, a teacher, reach out to them, because a lot of times kids just don't want to listen to their parents.
No, I think, I grew up just my dad and I. My dad was a great guy. I mean, wasn't very educated, but worked his butt off. And, it was helpful, though, just hearing points of view from other people. My dad, that, work ethic in life is one thing I took from him, just work like crazy. But, he took a very hardcore approach to work. And, so it was helpful having guidance from people outside of that, too.
Right. Have you ever done any mentoring yourself with anybody?
I have. I've taken interest in a few people along the way that have worked for us, and, kind of sharing things that I've learned, from entrepreneurial spirit to like how to get ahead in life to managing finances and investing and things like that. And just overall like motivation, pretty much explaining If anybody's going to do it, you are.
Right.
And no one else is going to do it for you.
Very true. Very true. So what, when you went back and got your high school diploma and then you said you went to college, what kind of courses did you take in college?
Well, when I went to college, like I mentioned, I didn't really grow up around money, things like that. I mean, we struggled a lot growing up, and I was like, well, what kind of jobs do you get where you make a lot of money and people respect you? So in college, my goal was to go to law school. So got into
Might make a lot of money, but I don't know if people respect that.
right. Well, at the time, I mean, where I grew up with, just working class type life, it was like, okay, a doctor or a lawyer. Those are like the two big ones. And I was like, I have no interest in being a doctor. So let's do the lawyer thing. So that was kind of my goal all through undergrad. And at the very last semester, I actually went to University of Alabama at Birmingham, which is where I got into off-roading and things like that. We can touch back on that in a moment. But at UAB, my last semester or so, after taking constitutional law and doing all this stuff and talking to some of my fraternity brothers that were in law school and a couple of them that had just graduated law school, I was like, man, I can't picture myself doing what they're explaining. And all through college, I had built bumpers and things for Jeeps and stuff like that. And never dawned on me to do that for a business. And so I graduated college and went to work for a pharmaceutical company. And I was actually a pharmaceutical rep selling drugs, of all things.
Legal.
Right.
Not as much money in that.
No, I mean, I made good money for, 27 years old back then, working, doing that, making well over six figures and building Jeep parts on the side. It was good times.
Yeah.
But I hated the job. I was selling an antidepressant, and I don't know if I'm getting ahead of myself here in the store in this, but I recall leaving a doctor's office one day, and we'd been talking about like symptoms of depression and reading some clinical studies on the particular one that I sold. I was thinking about all the symptoms, sitting there in the car and looking in the mirror. I'm like, man, I got that symptom. I got this one. I got this one. Man, my life sucks. I hate doing this. I should probably try some samples in the back seat. I think it was like at that moment, like, yeah, I should probably just be building Jeep parts for a living.
Good decision.
Yep. But yeah, backing up, I think, leaving the electrical job and ending up in Birmingham, going to college, that's where I was introduced to like Jeeping and off-roading, and there were a lot of trails and a Jeep community that we didn't have in Dothan at the time. And got my first Jeep, and really where all this started, I had some fabrication skills from working in the shop growing up, and I wanted bumpers and I wanted to lift a Jeep and do things like that. And I was looking through magazines and dreaming of purchasing lift kits and bumpers and things, and I didn't have any money to do any of that. So like my Christmas breaks and spring break and stuff like that, I'd just go home and build my own bumpers and did my own spring over and did all that stuff. And I guess that's kind of the start of where we are now.
And so going, you're working as doing sales with pharmaceuticals, and then you're on, sidelight work, you're doing bumpers and stuff, and then building Jeep parts. And then you just one day, that's it. I'm going to go do this.
Well, there's a little bit more to that story.
Okay.
When I was working for the pharmaceutical company, even before I got that job, I had a little shop behind the forklift shop. I just listened to a podcast where you were on with James, and he'd mentioned that little shop. And that was kind of the part-time little business. And I put up a website called Blue Torch Fabworks back then. Nobody knew who it was. But on the website, I put on there, this isn't a business. Don't call me. I'm just putting pictures of cool stuff that I build. Technically it was a business. I just didn't have enough time to do stuff for everybody. And so we kind of operated it that way for a couple of years. And then one day I was out of town for my drug rep job and got a phone call, and I thought it was somebody messing with me. It was someone on the other end saying, hey, we're with Original Productions, and we do Monster Garage. We want you to come on and do the rock crawler. And I'm like, man, I'm busy. I've got to get to work. Bye. And I hung up on them because I really thought somebody was messing with me. And they immediately called back and they were like, no, I'm not messing with you. I'm being serious. I'm like, whoever this is or whoever put you up to it, man, I'm late for work right now. And I hung up on them again. They called me back for a third time. And then that's when I got to talking to them. And they were for real. Unfortunately, I was unable to go do the rock crawler on Monster Garage due to some work things that we had going on. We were in the middle of launching a new drug at the time called Lexapro, and I had to be at the national meeting for that kickoff launch and all that, so I wasn't able to take off work and go do it. Fast forward probably 3 months later, they called and asked me to do a TV show called Drive Shaft, which would air on FX and later air on the Speed Channel for a little while back around 2003. And it was during that time when they called me back when I had that kind of epiphany of, man, I'm selling an antidepressant and I've become depressed from hating this job so much. So I negotiated a pay rate that I was acceptable with to do that TV show. And that's when I turned in my notice and quit and flew out to California to Long Beach on an Easter Sunday to start that TV show the following Monday.
Interesting.
And that's when Blue Torch went from a little part-time, don't call me, I'm not a business, to we're a business when I returned about 8 months later back to Alabama.
Awesome. And during that time, did you meet a lot of I would imagine you met a lot of other fabricators and stuff. Was that kind of the premise of the show, or?
Yeah, the premise of it was absolutely fabrication. And there were 2 teams on the show. You'd build things during the week and compete on the weekends. And each week you would have a specialist or professional in whatever given area you're working on. Like one week we turned a car into a boat, so they had like some boat experts. One week we built a sandrail, so we had sandrail experts, which was Troy Johnson from the Fab School.
Right.
And Troy at the time, this was way before he started the Fab School. He had a little shop and building sandrails and things like that. And he and I became pretty good friends over the years. And then when he started the Fab School, we continued our relationship. We started hiring people from there at Blue Torch, but also met the brothers from Anarchy out there. They were building like pre-runner trucks and things like that. And I picked up a few new fab skills from Troy and those guys, like things that, working in my small little world, pretty much teaching myself everything. It was like, wow, man, if I could be around some people like this, my learning curve would be better. Right. So certainly opened up some doors. I met quite a few people at CarTech and Corona to be able to get parts easier. And I was able to go visit a lot of those places during that 8 months I was out. So, didn't even know CarTech existed until I was out there.
Yeah, there's a lot of companies like that on the West Coast, and especially back then when the internet was still so raw. Right.
Yeah, it was more magazine based and everything at that point still.
Yep.
And very small world. Yeah, especially for like out here on the East Coast with automotive fabrication stuff like that, just there really wasn't anybody doing it. And hard to go ask questions or, you just kind of had to figure it out on your own back then. No internet to go Google search something.
So after the show and you get back to Dothan, you get a little more serious about the business aspect, I guess, right?
Yeah, when I returned, I'd already had probably about 40 or so products that were ready to be manufactured and selling on the website. I knew at some point that I would do that. So some of the projects that we were building back then, I'd already started collecting those items to put up for sale. So within probably a week of my returning, the website had parts on it and we were already selling parts.
Were you doing the website work yourself?
Man, I was so broke. I did everything myself. Website. I did get some help like designing parts in CAD a little bit from a couple friends early on, and then ended up hiring people because I didn't really know how to do that part of it. I just knew how to go hand make everything. Eventually taught myself SolidWorks and 3D CAD and was able to do a lot of that myself now. But back then it was like all the Photoshop stuff, all the website stuff. Had to teach myself how to code the website, do Photoshop to make magazine ads, all of it. Just there's a lot of long hours, which definitely take their toll on you after so many years.
Correct. And during that time, you got pretty heavily involved with like Pirate 4x4.
Yeah, the first probably 2 years, I was just lurking on Pirate and didn't want to get involved because I wanted to let the company grow at a pace where I could have products, ship it in a reasonable amount of time, because I was bootstrapping it, just pretty much funding the whole thing out of my own pockets. Didn't have like bank funding or anything like that. And so it's probably 2 years into it. It's like, okay, we're ready. We've got parts on the shelf. Let's start doing it on Pirate. So we started advertising on there, and things started to really grow really fast. We had a good product offer, and started to get a lot of attention.
I think it sounds to me that, like talking with a lot of others, that Pirate was pretty instrumental at kind of like the right time in everybody's life. I know it made me advertising for our rock crawls a lot easier because that's where the enthusiasts were at.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, during that time too, there was a big paradigm shift going from people purchasing things that bolt on a Saturday on their driveway, like a chrome roll bar in the back of their pickup truck and things like that. It transitioned. And I think a lot of it had to do with the Motorcycle Mania show that Jesse James did. Like before that show, I was doing fab work. Nobody wanted to come over. People in college called me a grease monkey and things like that. And, with a show like that coming on TV, it really taught people that metal fabrication is an art. It's a skill. It's not something for everyone kind of thing. And I think a lot of that really helped transform what was happening on Pirate at the time. And it was during that time too, with all the builder parts that I had amassed to launch as a product line. Everything that we built back then required someone to do something to it when they got it, meaning, they had to weld on it, or they may even have to cut on it and grind or whatever.
It helped with that whole mentality back then, and
right.
It still kind of is persuasive now, and that's
absolutely
bought or built, not bought.
Right. And and again, there's been a paradigm shift like we were discussing earlier in our conversation where now people, back then it was like the experience. I want to get a welder, I want to get a tube bender and build cool stuff, and that's my experience. And I think a little bit of the paradigm shift in the off-road industry now is more of the experience about adventuring, those types of memories, and more people are wanting things that are more complete, where they bolt on versus the heavy fab work. So certainly see a little bit of that, I guess, coming full circle back to that a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. I agree completely. I'm definitely seeing it, and that's even though we're retiring, it's from the competition scene. I'm not getting out of off-road.
Right.
So, and I won't get out of off-road until I can't drive anymore. That's the way I look at it.
Right.
I just may drive a little differently.
Yeah, that's definitely ingrained in me. I sold Blue Torch in 2009 and had a 3-year non-compete. And I was like, wow, man, I probably won't do it again as a business. I'll just do it for fun now. And it was probably like a year later. It was like, my God, I miss it. I want to build stuff. I want to do things for people. I want to build cool stuff. I got 2 more years. Will this ever end?
And during those 2 years when you made that realization, were you planning a comeback?
First year, no. Second year, I thought about it. Third year, yes, I started planning. I was working in Iraq on a government contract, working at the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad, and that's where worked on the Motobuilt name, the website, worked on a few new products, but we were talking about paradigm shifts and like things,
right.
how the industry changed. Well, me as a person changed too. During Blue Torch days, I wanted to build cool stuff. The business just happened to grow along with, putting together a cool team to help me build stuff like Bender and Matt and James Schofield and Red and everyone else. Like we had pretty much the A team in the industry, I feel like, building really cool stuff. And the focus wasn't really building a good core solid business to go forward with. Well, during that year of planning with MotoBuilt, it's like, okay, I'm a little older now. Cool stuff, that's cool. But, I want to build a good, solid financial future for myself and all the people that work for us or that would be working for me during this go around. So the focus shifted more toward building a really cool business versus just go build really cool stuff, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Making something that's more sustainable.
Correct. Then it was more, let's go, everything we built was a custom buggy and we would end up with parts to sell off of it. Whereas this go around, it's more, okay, let's go buy all the manufacturing equipment, bring it all in-house. Let's find a good product line that the people want, not so much build exactly what I want to do on everything, but build what people want. And let's go do that and go do it very well.
I think that's a much better business plan. Absolutely.
Yeah. My wife, she reminds me of it every now and then because we'll have customers, call and asking, hey, do you guys build this? Do you guys build this? And I'm like, there's no freaking way I'm going to build that. That's dumb, and she's like, well, that's what the people want. So I found myself bending a little bit because of that, like it's not always about what I want to do or what I think is cool.
Right. I know that there's somebody that we all know that's in the industry that, like he says, he goes, I don't care if the hardcore guys like it. If I've sold this many units, there's enough people out there to like it, that love it and want it on their Jeeps. And
right.
He's dead right. Whether we like, that product and would ever put it on our own stuff doesn't matter because there's people out there with credit cards and cash that are buying that product because they think it's cool.
Yeah. At the end of the day, you create that financial stability for your team and yourself. That's what matters. Like I take it very serious. Everyone that works for us, their wife, their kids, everyone, like those are all my families. I've got to take care of them, and we absolutely look at it that way.
How did
to get there.
How did the sale of Blue Torch come about? Was it something you guys were just working along and somebody walked up and said, "Hey, do you want to sell this business to me?" Or did you actively look to get out at that point?
I wasn't actively looking to get out. Jason had approached me in 2007, and he's a guy from Pasadena, California. He was living in Birmingham, Alabama. I didn't know him. He had visited a fab stock event where we built Aaron Peters' Jeep on Pirate for him back then for free. Had like a big fab day where people came in from all over the country. Well, he had visited that particular event. A little later, he called me and said, hey, I'd like to open a shop with your name in Birmingham, like a retail store. But he just kind of caught me at the right time. Like I was a little bit burnt out, like trying to struggle between, hey, I want to build cool stuff and, hey, I need to worry about P&L statements,
Right.
So, it's like, I don't want to worry about P&L statements. I want to build cool stuff. And so I called him back probably a few weeks later and said, hey, I would rather just sell you part of the company and let you run that part of it and just let me build cool stuff and focus on what I kick ass at. And so that's how that deal started. And so I sold him half the company. We moved to Birmingham and we were operating there. And, I found myself out in the shop working crazy hours, like 20 hours a day, building like one particular project, the KOH car that we built then. I started on it like around Halloween, and I didn't come back to Dothan to visit family until after the KOH race. So I came home, for Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. That was it. I remember being in the shop on New Year's Eve, like firecrackers and gunshots going off in downtown Birmingham, and I'm in there working
Gunshots.
away. Yeah. Yeah, it was a hell of a time. But I mean, I spent so many hours in there working on that car by myself. I ended up bringing Red down from Salt Lake City, Utah. He worked for us at Blue Torch helping build chassis. So called him up and he came down for a couple weeks to help me finish out on a few things. And but I mean, I'm not taking away anything from like Jay Clegg or James Schofield or anybody that was working with us. They pitched in a good bit on that car. But man, I was like 7 days a week, 20 hours a day, a lot of time on that thing. And then kind of just burned myself out through that process. And we were out at the Hammers that year racing. The car was doing really good. The car had a little bit of an accident pre-running a couple days before. So I think it was probably about halfway through the race that year. We were kind of on the leaderboard at that point, and the car lost a rear unit bearing, which timed us out. And I'm sitting there thinking, man, I just spent 3 months of my life building a car, singular focus to make it halfway through a race. And, I think in that moment, like, I think I'm done. I need to figure out a different way to do this. And we returned back to Alabama and basically cut the roof off the car and the back end and lengthened it and changed the roof line and stuff like that to prepare for the Vegas to Reno 1,000-mile race with that car. And we got the car out there, and it was pretty much, we left and came home from that and then made the deal with Jason, and I was out probably a month later, that September of 2009.
And that was a complete walk away.
Yeah, I was done. Like, I'm out. And it was a very, I don't know how to explain it, maybe liberating a little bit. Like, it felt good some, but it also felt like turning around and walking away from a baby, if you will.
Right.
But I'd spent so many hours in the shop and neglecting like my kids and things like that. Like, I kind of regretted some of that stuff. And I went from never like taking my daughter to school and never putting her hair in a ponytail, didn't know how to do any of that. So now I'm at home working from home for about 3 months. And like the first day I'm there by myself and I'm going to take her to school, I didn't know how to do hair in a ponytail. I was kind of completely freaked out. I'm like, man, I can go build a car, but I don't know how to do a ponytail. So, but yeah, it was,
I know that feeling that you were just talking about, that liberating, and then with the sale of Jake Good coming into We Rock and him taking over all the duties at the event, the unloading of the trailer and setting everything up and, getting, running the event. And then when the event is over, packing it all up and heading off to the next event. For us,
mm-hmm.
I mean, that was the part that was becoming more difficult, harder and harder and harder. I always loved the people.
Right.
I loved the challenge of the chess game against the teams and using the terrain as a chessboard. And, I love that part of it. But, man, that physical labor part just wore on me. And, and after 22, 23 years, it was like, okay, I got to stop. And with Jake taking over now, I mean, Shelly and I didn't even go to the Tennessee event this last week because not stuck in California, but we're in California helping with my parents and their health. And it's, I'm good with it. I'm satisfied. I'm not like, man, I'm Jones and I need to have to do this, at least so far. So
yeah, I can relate to that. I mean, priorities change a bit, and your focus changes a bit. It was like a big ball of mixed emotions when I left. Blue Torch. Some of it was like happy, like, oh man, this sucks. Happy, this sucks. Like, got this big hole in my life. That's kind of, for lack of better words, like, being in the industry and building things and running a business is like, hey man, that's part of what defines who I am. And now who am I? I spent a little bit of time trying to figure that out. So I think, once that non-compete ended with Blue Torch and Jason, like that December 2012, I turned the website on. and ran Motobuilt for part-time until 2014. And then in 14, it's like, okay, I think I do want to do this. I'm going to keep it small and manageable and have a few people and just do it really good. And then I start doing it. I was like, well, I don't go halfway on anything ever. So let's take the brakes off of this and let's go. And so that's what we did. I mean, people laugh at me because there's plenty of people in the off-road industry that were like, hey, man, are you going to do it big again? I'm like, no, I'm going to keep it small. And then they kind of laugh a little bit. And then I've gotten called out on it quite a few times. Like, hey, man, I thought you were going to keep that small.
Exactly.
I guess like 85,000 square feet and 75 employees and pushing 500,000 pounds of steel through here a month. That's small. I want to be bigger. That's still small.
It might be small in most manufacturing or some manufacturing, but for the off-road world, it's pretty dang big.
Yeah. Well, people are like, have you accomplished your goals? I'm like, well, I'll never accomplish my goals. I'm the kind of person that give me a mountain to climb. I'll climb the mountain, but I'm going to look at the next mountain and go, okay, we're going there. Let's go. And yeah, that's an advantage, but it's also a big disadvantage, meaning, never satisfied. Just want to keep going, want to keep pushing, want to keep doing more. And, I don't look at other companies and think, oh, I'm competing with them. Other companies look at me and think they're competing with me. It's not that I'm better than their company. I don't even think about them. I'm competing with myself.
Right.
Like meaning, I've got personal goals. I've got things that I want to prove to myself, and that's it. I don't feel like I have to prove anything to anybody.
That's good. So say somebody is listening to this and they're going, man, I want to do that. I want to get into manufacturing or, designing parts, that kind of stuff. What do you suggest the steps that somebody should take? Not necessarily, if it's the right ones, the ones that you took, but what would you think would be the best way for somebody to get started?
Man, that's a tough question because I think it really starts with the person. I remember a guy from Dirt Sport magazine was out visiting Blue Torch one time, and after dinner we'd pulled back up to the shop, and he's like, hey, Dan, I'd like some business advice. I'd like to start a business. And you seem to do very well with it, creating a brand and getting going. And I've got this idea. I want to do this. And I just looked at him. I was like, man, let me stop you right there. You need to answer one question. Are you willing to give up everything? And he's like, yeah, I am. I'm like, no, you didn't listen to the question. This is a question you can't answer sitting right here. You need to go home. You need to sit in the dark. You need to really decide, are you willing to give up everything? Because everything means everything. Because the reason why I say that, most people fail going into business because they already have outs. They already have reasons why they're going to quit. They'll be, hey, I'll start a business. If I'm not making money within 3 months, I'll go back to my job. You're going to fail if you have that thought, sir. Okay.
Yep.
So you can't go into business working for yourself with any kind of outs, any kind of doubts. You have to go into business thinking no matter what happens, no matter what comes my way, I will figure it out. And, the how word is where so many people get caught up. Like, how am I going to do it? So a lot of people, they don't even start in business because they're like, I don't have enough money. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to do that. So, they carry that thought into a business when they start it. Honestly, if you really want to do it bad enough, you're going to figure it out. Like, that how is not important.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I can relate to that.
Yep.
When I started CalRocks, I had to get my first entry fee in cash so I could open a bank account and get a business license.
Yeah.
That's how broke I was.
Yeah, I started Blue Torch with like $3,000 and a hope. It's like, okay, I'm going to go do this. Everybody around me tells me it's going to fail. Everybody around me can't see the direction I'm going to go, but you have to tune all that out. And But I don't want people listening to think, oh, just go do it and figure it out, because it's not meant for everyone. That there's a lot of people that can go create a very bad financial future for themselves just to go jump out there and do that. There has to be an educated guess to it as well, an educated, like plan to it. Don't just go do something and then figure it out. Like have some kind of plan before you go do it.
Yeah, I think people need to research if they have an idea, you find something that you love doing and you want to make a career out of it or a business out of it. You really have to research how that's going to work. You just can't say, okay, I'm going to open the door and let's see what happens.
Well, I tell people a lot of times when they call me and they're, hey, I really enjoy doing this, so I want to do this for a business. And I tell people, if you enjoy doing that, you should go get a job doing that. You shouldn't go start a business doing it, because if you start a business doing it, you won't be doing that.
You're going to hate it.
So, I think that was the difference between Blue Torch and Motobuilt. But, one bit of advice, I tell everybody, even people that own a business, there's one particular book that I tell everyone considering going into business or a small business that might be struggling a little bit. It's called The E-Myth Revisited: The Reason Why Most Small Businesses Fail. That book talks about some of the stuff like we're talking about. The technician is the person that enjoys doing, say, building rock crawlers. But in order to run a business, you've got to be the technician, you've got to be the manager, and you have to be the entrepreneur. You have to find some way to balance those three roles within a company. And if you want to be the technician and build cool rock crawlers, go get a job building rock crawlers. Do not start a business.
What I see is so many people don't understand the business side of things.
Right.
They are very creative. They're talented, but they don't understand what it takes to make money and keep money.
There's a big disconnect between that technician role and the management role that way. And I've had to learn how to be the manager, learn how to understand money and what to do with it. That is definitely a struggle for a lot of people. I learned the hard way.
Me too.
Yeah.
Luckily, I met Shelly, and Shelly is great at the business end of things. Absolutely phenomenal. And, in 2009, I was walking away. After that season, I was never going to put on another rock crawling event. I was done. I didn't care I didn't care how many other businesses or lives might have been ruined with the sport disappearing, because I figured, somebody will pick it up, somebody will do it, but I'm not. And She was retiring from her job, and she was like, well, let me help you. You seem to be doing this part of it really good. You need help over here. And I'm like, yeah, I do need help over there, but do you realize what you're getting into? It's pretty deep over there. And she's like, no problem, So, I thought I would be putting on rock crawls until they buried me at the start or finish gate someday. And now I don't have to do that, because I found the right partner. And then I married her.
Well, the same goes for me. My wife, Hunter, she had been around some during the Blue Torch days. We were just friends back then. When I started Motobuilt, I'd given her a call to help out with some of the administrative end of things so I could focus on still being that technician, because I had to be during the early days of Motobuilt. And she was around working part-time. Well, life changed for her and me both. We ended up getting married, and she's been a very integral part of the Motobuilt process. And our dynamic here is she spends her days up front running the business side of things, where I'm out running more of the manufacturing and the engineering and marketing side of our business. So I don't have to focus so much on, hey, is this bill paid, or is it too much money for this or that? So we make a very good team now.
And that's important.
Yeah.
It really is. I think anybody, and it's one of the things that I didn't have that early in my career. I had somebody that would come to the events, but
Yeah.
not necessarily be an asset at the events. And
Yeah.
that's changed, and that's a
Yeah.
big thing.
You and I are exactly the same there. Like, man, it is super awesome having, a partner in life where she understands what I'm thinking, what I'm doing, and we're both stride for stride going in the same direction. It's an awesome thing to have.
Yeah, not fighting you over every minute.
Right. And I'll tell you though, like before she and I got together, I mean, I worked around the clock, worked weekends, just work, and didn't have a very good like work life balance. And I've learned a lot about that work life balance with her. Like normally I would be walking out the door at 5 o'clock or slightly after. I stuck around today to do this call with you. And, that's one of the things that I really love about her. Like she's helped me change my life where I'm able to enjoy other things in life, not just here now.
Right. And with that, you now have more. It's not just Moto Built, but you have other facets to the company. Is that correct?
Yeah, we have some other stuff. I won't go into all of it on here because some of it just kind of needs to stay private. But
right.
We have another company called Anvil Industrial Group. We started that basically because I was going and doing consulting work in the industrial sector, and I would give someone a Moto-Built business card with a Jeep on the front of it. And some of the engineers and things at one particular company, Berg Pipe, down in Panama City, Florida, had an issue. I went down there and helped them solve the problem. And at first they didn't take me very serious, and I knew they weren't taking me serious. And we were going to lunch together after that meeting. So I took my laptop into the lunch with us, and I drew the part in SolidWorks in like 5 minutes that fixed their $1,000 problem, and said, "Here you go. This is how you fix it." And all of them were like looking at each other, like, and then the main guy was like, "Okay, yeah, build that for us." And so it was kind of like then is where we needed to have an industrial name. So in the beginning, it was still kind of the same people in Moto-Built helping out on the industrial type jobs, but the Anvil side started to grow where we needed to have our own team over there. So now we have multiple service trucks like millwrights that are out doing work in sawmills, peanut mills. We're doing government contract type work and a few other things. The company got to be so busy where Hunter and I couldn't manage it anymore. So I actually brought in a managing partner, Kevin. He runs that company for us now, and I'm not involved with day-to-day operations with Anvil anymore. We still own vast majority of the company, but Kevin's rocking and rolling and making sure things happen.
Well, that's great when you can find somebody that does that can do that. Excellent.
Yeah, and we just gave him ownership in the company. We didn't make him buy in or anything like that. His skill set bought his way in. So he's a huge asset, and he's doing a phenomenal job with it.
Well, that's hell of a motivation too.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I've got another company that I want to kind of do the same thing with, and I've been talking to a few different people. We just haven't found the right person for this other venture yet, but hopefully we'll find them soon.
Might have to talk offline. I might know people that can help.
Yeah, we could do that.
Okay. So then in the future, where do you see Dan?
Well, at some point I'd like to retire before I'm too old to enjoy myself. And, we've got a lot of very good people within our organization that can rise up and handle day-to-day operations and allow my wife and I to step back a bit. So at some point, I don't know how many years that'll be when I'm ready to do that, but when I'm ready, I think we're grooming people to be in those positions to do it.
Excellent.
We'll continue to grow Moto-Built. We want to add in some other product lines and things like that, but we're taking a very strategic approach to growth. We don't want to grow so fast that we grow ourselves out of business, but we're kind of going in the right direction, so we're going to keep doing what we're doing.
Excellent. And as they keep producing new vehicles, there's something to add to the SKU lines, right?
That's right. But I mean, there's still plenty of stuff to add to existing vehicles and add into the product line. You
Absolutely.
know, like building the YJ that I'm building for myself, posting pictures of that, you wouldn't believe like the amount of social media traffic that we get off of a Jeep YJ. You know, a lot of other companies have forgotten about that, moved on to the JK and the JL and Gladiator and things like that. But I'm still building my roots, you know, back in the YJ days, building big 1-ton stuff. But man, parts for, you know, that kind of stuff still sell, but it's also fun to do.
Right. So then you have Bender, and he's back with you. That was I thought that was very interesting, and I
Yeah,
thought it was a good move.
Bender left in 2008 from Blue Torch when we were relocating it to Birmingham. He relocated back to California to fight for custody for his kids.
Right.
And you know, after I sold the company, when I started Motobuild, I was like, "Hey man, I'm gonna need you out here." He's like, "Well, as soon as my kids graduate from high school and get off on their own, I'll come back." So that's kind of what happened. As soon as they graduated and joined the Navy and that sort of thing, he moved back out here about right at 3 years ago. And so it was like we never missed a beat. We're back working together, and that working relationship between he and I, it's very smooth. A lot of times we're moving very fluid together when we're working on things. Like don't have to talk about it. Like we kind of know what each other are thinking or doing, and it's also good having someone like Bender to bounce some of my crazy ideas off of.
Because he has some pretty crazy ideas himself.
Yeah, like he'll bring me things all the time, talking about stuff like, "Hey man, I just want to bounce this off of you." And I was like, "Really? What? What again? What? No, I'm not gonna let you shock me." Yeah, Bender's games, but no, it is it is a very good dynamic. Like he and I working together, and then working with our design staff, and you know, getting new products designed, and it's a very good dynamic.
And he has enough experience with television shows now that if you ever wanted to go in that direction at some point, he's a fit.
Yeah, the Discovery Channel had called us right before COVID got kicked off, and we were in some pretty serious conversations about doing a show with Discovery here at Motobuilt, and then the COVID stuff hit, and those conversations completely stopped. But who knows? We may revisit something like that in the future. But you know, years ago at Blue Torch, I'd have been chasing that, like wanting to talk to somebody about doing it. Now it's like, you know, that's short-term benefit, short-term growth that, you know, you grow really big, really fast, end up with big buildings and overhead that you can't sustain once the TV show ends. So, you know, I think it's smart just to focus on growing your business, growing your brand, and if something like that happens, it happens. But at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter
Yep.
if we do it or not.
Yeah, I remember the time I visited you, it was looking at a possible event site that we were going to turn into something that would be, you know, the whole television deal thing.
Yeah,
And
we had filmed a pilot at Blue Torch back then, and that kind of, I don't know, kind of kept going on and on and on through the channels at Discovery and things like that, and negotiations and things until the content was pretty much outdated. Some people that were involved were like left their company and things like that, so it just kind of got dropped. And you know, unfortunately, that didn't go anywhere. But you know, back then, you know, man, I was really hoping it would. But hindsight, probably a good thing it didn't.
right, I know that's the same thing that I look at on some of the opportunities that presented themselves with us. We we shot some stuff for some sizzle reel, and it turned out really good. But the group we were working through, the producers were working with the Weinstein Group with their television side, which was
Yeah,
just getting started, and they were all over what we wanted to do. It wasn't going to be like a results show. It was going to be a why, and the dream of, you know, the challenges to get out to do the events. for the
Yeah,
teams and everything.
yeah, I mean, that's more interesting to watch than just the actual rock crawling and who scored a point or didn't, I mean,
Yep. And then
it's more
Harvey
impactful and
got caught with
yeah,
his hands in the honey jar, you might say.
yeah, yeah. So I guess that pretty much squashed that.
Oh, it did in a hurry. It went from,
Yeah,
yeah, we're doing this to, like a week later, literally getting the call going, it's gone. They're going to hand
yeah,
us all of our footage back and said, good luck. From
yeah,
from looking at production schedules to that. I mean, it was that
yeah,
fast.
yeah. Like, I don't know. I've been asked to do some TV shows. Like one of them, it was another Discovery thing. I guess it was probably around 2018, somewhere around in there. Like I had a heart attack in 2017,
Wow.
about died. Yeah. And then 2018, I got asked to go out to Texas and do some filming and be out there for like 6 or 8 months straight. And I'm like, well, man, I can't run a business and be in Texas filming TV. So turn that down. Then another show called and said, hey, we want you to do some fab work. And Bender was in town visiting right before he was moving here. And Bender and I were standing out on the driveway, his wife and my wife standing there. And I was like, man, I can't do it. But here, talk to this guy. And the guy on the phone knew who Bender was from Truck Night in America. So they started talking, but that didn't really go anywhere. Like the TV show didn't happen. But there's been a lot of instances that way where we've had opportunity to do TV, but I've got to focus on growing a business and I can't leave and go do something like that. But it's very fortunate for Bender where he can leave and go do that.
Right. So then what else is there with your life that you'd like to share?
Man, like
Any good stories
yeah, I
that,
don't
that
know.
are
There's so
that are
many.
that are GP enough, or not not above the R rating?
I mean, I feel like my life's been a roller coaster. I mean, almost like the Forrest Gump movie. Like I've been a lot of places and done a lot of things.
I
It's
talk about that time when we came out there, Little Rich and I, and
yeah.
we started off at Hooters with dinner, and then ended up out in the woods somewhere at that double wide that
Oh yeah,
was
yeah.
ended up
Everybody
being
talks about the double wide. Yeah,
that
that
was
was one of Dustin Webster's favorite places when he'd come out here and visit when we were building the Red Bull car. Like that, that's where he wanted to go. Yeah, that was definitely an adventure.
it
I
was.
guess the listeners probably wouldn't have any idea of what we're talking about, but yeah,
It was.
it was
I'll
definitely
let them
interesting.
know. It was a strip club out in the middle of the woods, and I don't know how
Yeah,
long it took us to drive there. It seemed like it was 45 minutes, but we were having a good time on the drive. And
yeah,
it's a double wide strip club with the low ceiling and the legs cut off of the tables and chairs, so that the
yeah.
it was pretty Alabama is the way I
Oh,
looked
even
at
the
it.
leg cut off of a dancer too. I think at one point in that place. So yeah,
Yeah.
it was definitely an adventure. Um, but it seems like the only time I ever went there was like when people like you guys or people coming from some other place way away. We would end up there just for the shock factor of it, I guess.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The only other place that was like that I can remember was in Hannibal, Missouri. There was a pasties bar in there
Yeah.
with you know, and it was called Old Milts, and I think everybody nicknamed it Old Milfs.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Like I've been around, done a lot of road traveling, and seen a lot of crazy things. But it's hard to beat that place.
Yes, definitely. The memories. I mean, if I ever write a book, that's going to get a chapter. Those just couple of hours are going to get a whole chapter.
Yeah, it's chapter worthy. Yeah, like I remember being in there, like the black lights on, and some girl had like a scar, like starting on her face all the way across her chest or something. Looked like somebody cut her with a box cutter at some point in life.
Well, the
Yeah,
the time we were there, the girl had like a fresh wound on her back that was probably, I don't know, 4 or 5 inches long.
Yeah, I
That
think
had
I
like
remember that. Yeah,
it still had the stuff on it that's like a Vaseline or whatever.
yeah,
And then she was wearing the stripper shoes that were like 5 sizes too small, so her toes were curled over the end. God, unbelievable. I'm giving away my
yeah,
chapter.
yeah. You better hold on to some of those memories. Um, yeah, definitely made a few trips there, and definitely have some good memories. Um, but yeah, I don't know, man. It's hard to say what really stories stand out the most. I mean, I think the biggest thing from being involved in the off-road industry since probably the early 90s is pretty much everybody I'm friends with and everybody I know these days have something to do with this industry. People I've met like yourself along the way, or customers that I've become very good friends with over the years, or people that have ended up working for us. And it's pretty amazing to see too, like the number of people that have worked for us in the past that are now out operating their own businesses and being successful with them. So that's awesome.
That means that you did a good job, whether you knew
Yeah.
you trained them or not.
Yeah. I mean, it's awesome to see what James is doing up in Birmingham, with his tuning and the dyno, and, just seeing his career come along. That's awesome. Matt, that used to design for us at Blue Torch, has his own business called Undercover Fab. He seems to be doing very well. He's not too far from us here in the Dothan area, and he's still trucking on along and doing awesome stuff. There's quite a few others that own various types of other businesses that may, not necessarily off-road related, but very cool.
Talk about the heart attack, if you don't mind.
Yeah, never really been an overweight kind of guy or felt like I was unhealthy. When I was working in Iraq, I gained some weight just eating at the chow hall at the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad. Like, they fed you warfighter food, which high calorie, packed on some weight. But I think my work ethic over the years played a big role in that. I went years like sleeping 3 hours a night. And I mentioned earlier in the conversation, that type of work will catch up with you. And when I started Motobuilt, I started doing the same thing, just working around the clock, getting to bed at like 1 or 2 in the morning and back at it at like 5 in the morning. And then one Sunday I was sitting watching TV, getting ready to go to bed, and I was like, man, my back hurts a little bit. I think I might have pulled something, and kind of thinking about that for a little bit. And I laid down to go to bed and kind of hurt real bad. And I sat up like, oh man, this sucks. This hurts. Sat there for a few minutes, and then I laid back down, and it hit me like a freaking freight train. Felt like somebody stuck a hatchet in my back. And I sat up immediately, and that's when my arm was hurting. And basically got in the truck and luckily lived close to a hospital. Drove straight there, went in the emergency room, and the people just looked at me walking in. They didn't even like slow down to talk to me. Found myself in one of the rooms in the emergency room there, hooking wires up and cutting my clothes off. And it went from like 3 or 4 people to like 15 people in there in a matter of a couple minutes. And 10 minutes or 15 minutes later, I'm in an operating room, and they're slitting me down in my leg to go put a stent in. When I'm on the operating table, I recall a nurse like getting down in my face and saying, "Hey Dan, I need you to cough. I need you to cough right now." And I like took a breath to cough, and yeah, that was my heart stopping. That's when those things that were taped to my chest lit me up like a Christmas tree, and it felt like it separated my body from my soul. It hurt so bad, like when they shocked me. But during that time, like going into the hospital with those pain, I was hurting so bad, thinking, man, I wish they'd give me something for the pain. I was laying there on the operating table, and the pain subsided. Like, oh, finally, they gave me something for pain. I don't know what they did, but the pain's going away. That wasn't the pain going away. That was just my heart stopping, like going into AFib.
Oh, Jesus.
And yeah, and after they shocked me, the pain was back. And then the doctor, he went in there and put the stent. It was the Widowmaker, the LAD. And when he put the stent in, the pain went away. And long story short, the surgery process was over, and a nurse comes up to me while I'm kind of laying on the table in a hallway waiting to go back to her room. And she leans down and she goes, "What did it feel like? I've never seen anybody get shocked while they're awake like that." I was like, just looked at her like, "Holy fuck, it hurt." Excuse my language, but oh God, I would not recommend it to anybody alive. Yeah.
Wow.
Luckily I was at the hospital. The cardiologist kind of came, we talked, and he goes, "I thought you were on like drugs or something. Like I asked everybody in your family, they kept saying you're not on drugs. I had them do a drug test. Like I just don't understand somebody young like you and how you look. This just doesn't make sense." And but no, never done drugs in my life or anything like that. And he's like, "Man, you're like a 2%er. If you wouldn't have gotten the truck and drove up here, you would have died waiting on an ambulance." He's like, "I absolutely don't recommend you getting the truck and drive here, having a heart attack like that. I recommend, people call an ambulance so that they have like some type of life support there. But man, if you would have done it, you would have died waiting on the ambulance."
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah. So, changed my life a little bit after that. I still kind of worked some crazy hours when I got going back at it. And then, just kind of came to the realization I couldn't keep living that way. I needed to do something different. And Hunter, she's been a big part of that, like changing my life where I don't work crazy hours like that.
Well,
so
I'm glad you survived.
Yeah, me too. I feel like I'm a much better parent to my kids and a much better spouse to my wife and everything else now.
And
Like,
how old
enjoy
are you?
life. And
How old are your kids?
I have my son. He just turned 21 this month. My daughter, she'll be 18 in September, and then have a stepdaughter that's 9.
Okay. Awesome. And where are they? Where do you think your son is heading? What's his goal?
My son is more interested in becoming like a home builder and buying foreclosure properties and flipping them. So he's learning to do that with his grandparents.
Okay.
I've told him if he decides this is what he wants to do, I'll teach him everything I know here. But I don't want to force him into it or encourage him to do something he doesn't want to do. So, I'm kind of letting him find his own way in life a little bit, but we're here if he wants to be here.
Cool. And how about the daughter?
I'm not sure what Ella wants to do yet. She's still in high school, and she seems to be more interested in building like video game stuff. She's already making money building character stuff for some different video games. So
excellent. Okay.
Seems kind of interesting, but I don't know if that's what she wants to do for a career. She really hasn't said. I think it's just something she likes to do right now.
Excellent. And of course, the 9-year-old has no clue what she wants to do yet except grow up.
She says she wants to be a lawyer and become a judge. Yeah, she wants to be a judge.
Good. That's I know you got to take your steps and become a lawyer first, and then become a judge. But that's if she's young like that and that's what she wants to do, that's awesome.
Yeah, she loves to watch Judge Judy or something like that with her grandmother and like predict how the case is going to go, like as if she were a judge. She's right most of the time.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, cool. So, I don't know what other questions I have for you. We've kind of covered the spectrum.
Yeah, it's been a long, crazy career. I've seen a lot of things come and go in this industry, and a lot of people come and go. And like you mentioned, I think this will be what I do until I'm done. So one way or another, I'll be involved in off-roading, even if it's kind of a semi-retire and let somebody run this place. I'll be off wheeling somewhere. Which I guess that does bring up one last topic we could talk about.
Sure.
People ask me all the time, like, "Hey man, how often do you go wheeling?" And my response is, I really haven't been wheeling since leaving the Vegas to Reno race in 2009. My last time like really wheeling was like at the Hammers, probably 2009.
Wow.
my focus has been solely on building a business and not getting out and wheeling and things like that. But the YJ that I'm building and the Gladiator that I'm building, I'm planning to take both of those to events. My wife and I, we're going to change up a bit and start traveling and go to wheeling events and things like that and get back out and get to the roots of what started me in this industry, which was the love for wheeling and getting out and talking to the people and doing stuff like that. So you guys will probably see us out at some events later this year and next year with the YJ and with the Gladiator.
That'd be awesome. That's great.
Yeah,
You
so
need to get out.
Yeah, I think that's probably, like talking about goals, that's one of them, I guess a personal goal right now is just to get back out and go wheeling. I mean, I've been wheeling a little bit, but, some since 2009, but I wouldn't necessarily compare it to wheeling that I used to do, if that makes sense.
Right.
I mean, going to some of the smaller off-road parks in the area or even going to some of the bigger ones for vendor type stuff isn't like what back in the day, like load up and go, hope you get it back on the trailer by the time the weekend's over,
I just did a trip like that.
Yeah, like this YJ that I'm building, I've kind of pulled out all the stops, putting it together, and man, big horsepower. It's pretty much a rock bouncer with a YJ body, and I'm looking forward to having some fun. I want to hit places like get back out to Las Cruces. I want to go to Easter Jeep next year with it and get back out to Hammers. In this long career I've had in the off-road industry, I've never been to the Rubicon, so definitely want to get out there with it and go wheeling.
Well, when you decide to come to the Rubicon, let me know.
I'll do that
because that's the trail I grew up on back in the mid 80s. Yep.
Yeah, there were a lot of opportunities even during the Blue Torch days to go there, but it's just kind of so busy with working and everything else. It's kind of hard to get out there and do some of those things, but I'm certainly looking forward to getting back out that way and getting in the desert some and tearing up a few things on the rocks. So that'd be a good time.
Absolutely. Sounds great. Well, excellent,
Yeah.
Dan. I want to say thank you so much for spending some time. I know we've been bouncing this for, 4 or 5 weeks trying to find the time when both of us could be available. And I'm glad we were able to spend some time and get caught up.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Well, if you and the wife are ever out this way, you're certainly welcome to come stay a day or two and hang out and catch up. And I'll do the same, man. I'll hit you up if we're out that way.
Sounds great. I appreciate it. All right,
All
take
right,
care.
man.
Say
All
hello
right.
to everybody there for me too.
I'll do it. I'll thump Bender in the ear or something, tell him hi.
There you go. All right. Take care then, Dan. Thank you.
Okay, man. Thank you.
Bye.
Talk to you soon. All right, bye.
Well, that's another episode of Conversations with Big Rich. I'd like to thank you all for listening. If you could do us a favor and leave us a review on any podcast service that you happen to be listening on, or send us an email or a text message or a Facebook message, and let me know any ideas that you have, or if there's anybody that you have that you think would be a great guest, please forward the contact information to me so that we can try to get them on. And always remember, live life to the fullest. Enjoying life is a must. Follow your dreams and live life with all the gusto you can. Thank you.